Okay, good morning and welcome everyone. I'm a bit blinded by this, so I'll stay on the side. Today we are holding a session on how to actually implement synergies in practice between Horizon Europe and Digital Europe. So we have these programs running in parallel with lots of excellent results coming out of Horizon Europe, where Digital Europe needs to step in and make sure that these results are spread across. So for today's panel, we invited several speakers who handle various instruments in these programs. And we are looking for their views of how this can be done in practice. So let me take a few moments to introduce our speakers today. I will just go from left to right. So Jérôme Guyot from TNO. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Jero. I am the EU manager for TNO Unit Strategy and Policy. And I will be speaking here about my current experiences with those synergies from a very practical and personal point of view.
Yes, then we have Natalia from F6S, and she is running some projects in Horizon Europe in cascading grants, bringing together the community, looking for the research results that can be exploited. So please go ahead and introduce
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Natalia Cardona. I'm a project manager at F6S. And yes, basically, as Adina said, we've been running several Horizon Europe projects. And we're here to talk about synergies in how we implement this community building from our point of view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then finally, we have Jan Hoekman from the European Commission and responsible for TEPs. So please go ahead and say a few words about yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Jan Hoekman. I'm a policy officer in Connect A1. So that's the unit dealing with AI and robotics funding initiatives. And one of my main responsibilities is coordinating and managing also the testing and experimentation facilities under the DEP program.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's start with you, Jan. So basically, in the DEP program, we have currently many instruments that are supposed to engage the research results that are coming from Horizon Europe. Could you describe some of the ones that you are dealing with in your unit?
So yeah, I'm going to again use the example of the TEFs, so the testing experimentation facilities, because actually I'll speak more from obviously the perspective of the Commission, where we write calls and then also manage projects. So these TEFs are currently 1 year old. Out of the 5-year duration, they're sort of scaling up and will be operational this year. So in terms of the concrete research results, that will be, I think, more this year that we'll see them. But basically, I want to also touch upon how we try to ensure that the results from, in this case, Horizon 2020, was also feeding into the work programs and call text for DEP for these TEFs. Because basically, if you look at the TEFs, there are 4 in 4 sectors. And we chose them because they were building on focus areas that we were funding on Horizon Europe. So there was a focus on manufacturing, on healthcare and agri-food. And this is also what you can see then in the 4 sectors, where we added also smart cities as a 4th example, but a 4th focus. But this is basically how we try to sort of make sure that the results that we've been pushing for with previous Horizon 2020 funding programs, that these will also benefit the more deployment side focused projects, which are the tests on the DEP program. And yeah, I think that we'll hopefully see this year the success of it.
Thank you very much. And Jérôme, your organization deals quite a bit with data spaces. Could you comment on that?
Yes, so I've been asked to kind of frame my interventions or my talk here about the data spaces. So TNO is involved in the Data Space Support Centers, which is one of the cornerstone projects from the DG Connect regarding the creation of data spaces. And from there, actually, that's allowed me to, while preparing for these sessions, to identify 4 types of synergies that I have actually experienced inside those projects. So if you give me if 1 or 2 minutes, I'm going to just get through it, and after I'm happy to develop a little bit more. So the first kind of synergies that we have noticed, and actually this is the one that the Commission is speaking the most, or at least we are looking the most, is a research field synergy. The results that is generated in one of the programs is used as a basis for another. In the case of the data spaces, for example, if you're familiar with the field, the architecture of the data space support centers of the blueprint is based on the result of the European Horizon 2020 project, Open DEI. This was a starting point, and any project would have started from another or from scratch would not have a chance to get successful. So that's a kind of continuity in the research trends and in some sort of incremental way that the commissions would like this to work. Then there is the access synergies, which is kind of what Jan had just been presenting, is you might need to access the results or the capacity or the capability, mainly when it's an infrastructure, of another project. So if you want just need to do AI and you need HPC, you are not invited to have inside your project, in the structure of your project, the budget for using or buying an HPC infrastructure, but to use more the Euro HPC infrastructure. This is a kind of example. Same thing for when we come for AI. If I link into the data spaces, you will need the data spaces. If you want to develop a solution of AI in one of the vectorials, you will be invited to use a data space infrastructure of this vectorial. So do not restart from scratch. The third kind of synergies is what I call the call synergies, and this one is a bit more tricky. It's basically when there is the two fields in the two different programs, or even within the same programs, are developing in parallel. And the best example I can give is not related to data, this one, but it's like cybersecurity. What is developed in one is actually feeding what is happening in the other one, and vice versa. And this is the most tricky one for actually implementing a synergy, because you are developing a proposal, you don't know what's going to be on the other side. So that means that here, in terms of preparation, you must have an agile project management type. And you should also, or maybe you have a task which is like cooperations with what's going to come out. That's something which requires forward thinking. And finally, and this is why you will remember me today, is what I call the stupid synergy. It's when, for no bad intent, but you end up having twice the same thing found in different programs, or sometimes even within the same programs. And here there is nothing we can do about that. You just realize that something has been called for twice, sometimes at the same moment, and this is because of the complexity of the programs, the complexity of the decision makers, or sometimes it's 99% of the time not bad intents, but you have the same thing called twice. There is nothing we can do about that, just live with it. And I'll stop here.
Yeah. I think it also generates healthy competition to some extent, right? So it has its benefits, even if it's not anticipated. Okay, Natalia, I would like to ask you. You're working currently in an area that is so far not as structured as some of the other areas. And you're working from Horizon Europe. So how do you bring the community together, and how do you work on making these efforts synergistic?
Well, yeah, basically at F6S we have several projects in the field of XR. So one of the projects that we've been working on is Vox Reality. It's a very new project, and we have a consortium that it's mainly formed by research partners. In my experience, what we've been trying to do with this consortium is try to bring research into more general spaces and also create more contact between the business partners that are helping us develop the sustainability of the project after its end. And that way try to bring all that knowledge that our technical partners have into a more practical space, and possibly a step forward in the future, in the next iteration of these types of projects. But yeah, that's basically the work that we are currently doing.
Yes, yes. And I understand that you will be having some open calls to engage the community. Do you offer them some sort of support to understand these more permanent structures that are developing and possibly developing specifically in your area in the future?
Yes, so in this specific project, we are having an open call that it starts now, like in the spring. And for this open call, we're targeting startups and SMEs, research institutions and universities, and we will be bring support to 5 applicants, and it will be like up to 200,000 euros in equity-free funding. So what we want to do with this is, with the research that the project has created so far, we have some open AI models that our partners have created. Well, we want the people that are going to be bringing into the project their proposals to build on top what we have already created. So we're focusing on natural language processing and computer vision, and our goal is that the startups or third parties that we are going to be supporting to help us improve what we already have.
And in your experience, the startups you've engaged with in previous similar projects, are they well aware of all these big structures that the Commission is developing, and what do you think can be done so that their innovations are well deployed across Europe?
So as you know, like we've at F6S have worked for several years in the field of managing FSTP, and more recently we've started taking the role of creating community and managing communication and dissemination for these projects. So in my experience and the time that we have worked with startups and other third parties, it's at the beginning, it's kind of tricky to engage them because maybe they're not aware of all of the opportunities that we can offer to them. Years ago, we would just target them with you're going to receive some funds so you can develop your innovation, or we will support you with money. But nowadays, I think most of the companies, they want a little bit more of value from whatever that we are proposing. So not only to receive the money, but also that we facilitate the connections with other parties, that we get them and introduce them to other people that are maybe developing similar things. They want to be more part of the ecosystem. This is one thing that at F6S we have taken the time to build throughout the years. The platform, it's been on the market several years. We have over 200,000 startups there. So this is one of the things that we mainly want to focus on, the impact that we can create and bring them awareness, not only about we can provide this financial support for you, but also we can, as consortium and as the European Commission, we can bring you into an ecosystem and a space that is giving you more value for your company.
Thank you. Okay, and Jan, how do you think TEFs can engage all the actors across the field who are willing to innovate and willing to experiment with your facilities?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, I mean, maybe just to say what TEFs are. I mean, so testing and experimentation facilities, they're basically large-scale infrastructure that are offering the validation testing service to European AI and robotics innovators, so SMEs and startups. And so they bring to bear the infrastructure that universities or RTOs have, and the expertise of these and other partners that can help innovators to sort of move from a prototype that maybe sort of a researcher has developed or they have then spun out, and then actually make sure that it actually meets the conditions in the real world. And that's really sort of this large-scale testing on the real-world condition. That's what the TEFs are doing. And so and I think also what I should mention is that what I'm already seeing now, even though it's just 1 year into the project, is that actually because these are universities and RTOs, they're usually at the cutting edge of their respective fields, so that they're really able to provide this top-notch expertise and infrastructure that otherwise startups wouldn't be able to access from. And so I think this is a quite good sort of good value proposition that innovators can then take advantage of. And for example, TEF Health, one of the 4, is going to launch, I think, in March or even or February, a call within their sector where innovators can sort of ask for help, and so the TEF Health is sort of a one-stop shop where they bring together also, for example, certification bodies that help them through the entire process from sort of validating it also with in view of the conformity assessments, so that they actually can put it on the market much more quickly than they otherwise could have. So I think that's a little bit what the TEFs are doing and are able to offer to these innovators. And I realized I didn't answer in your first question. I think for me the most important fact of synergies, actually, it's not with Horizon Europe or H2020. It's actually with the national funding. So I mean, so it's just baked into the fact that it's a 50% co-funding instrument. I know it's very painful for every participant who is in this, and also for the member states, and also for the Commission, I have to say. But actually, it's because we're able to work on concrete projects on this sort of on AI, which is for the Commission like matter of technology sovereignty and competitiveness. I think it's a really good instrument to actually align member state and EU funding and thinking on how we can sort of tackle this challenge in very concrete terms, not just AI in general, which is often a buzzword, but actually looking at concrete use cases, offering them to innovators, and making sure that national support and EU funding works towards the same goal. I think that's even though it's a bit painful, it is actually quite worth this extra effort.
Mm-hmm. And so far you've done this at the level of the facilities themselves. Do you see this expanding, so it's not just the facilities, but maybe also to engage more national actors to use these facilities?
Yeah, so I mean, this will be the thing that we'll be pushing the TEFs to do, so that they go out and speak with the local, regional or national industry forums where they will actually present what they can do, so that they actually go to these innovators and companies and say, well, we can help you with your problems of actually putting your solution on the market, your innovative AI solution or robotic solution. So this will be the work for this and the coming years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What about data spaces? What efforts do you see to bring in the European community?
That's a very good question. There is several things that are going on in terms of how to engage the community, and it's at a difference between horizontal and vertical approaches. On the horizontal approaches, there is this kind of common architectures that the Commission would like to have being used by all the different people inside Europe. A common data space architecture. And when we speak with the Commission on this, what they say the worst case scenario for us is that we have a divergence in the different data space architectures that exist. So in order to support the engagement of the community and making sure that it doesn't diverge, we try to get an open participations in the co-design of those aspects. So this is a kind of a synergy which is by design of the project. Inside the verticals after us, you have these horizontal architectures, but when you come for data space, you also have vertical data space which are funded by the Digital European programs. Then here, all are different. And they have a different approach. Some of them are very mature, some of them are brand new, so that will depend about the field where you're going to be. If you're on a very mature field, most of the time what's going to happen is that the right people are already involved, and then they use mechanisms like FSTP or other type of associations or specific federations that's going to be involved there. I can think, for example, it's not a vertical, but IDSA or GaiaX are associations that are bringing the people that are involved, and the technical work made in those associations are actually after bring inside the national, the European project. When it's a less mature one, unfortunately, this is ongoing. So I don't exactly have an example or reply for these questions, except pay attention if you're working in those fields.
Okay, thank you. So, and in each of your fields, what are the biggest challenges to establish these synergies?
I'll just continue where I left off. I think the biggest challenge is actually making sure that national EU funding aligns, and that we're able to allow the consortium to do what they want to do or need to do, rather. And I think that's. But I think actually we're on a very good track on meeting this, and what I really find very encouraging is that everyone works together like in one team approach. It's really, the more difficult, the more I have the impression is sort of working together to find a solution, and that's really for me encouraging to see when I work with the beneficiaries and the member state counterparts on actually trying to find solutions to whatever the setup throws at us. And so I think for me it's very encouraging. And like I said, I do think the tests have really sort of a great value proposition to innovators, and that really makes me think it's worthwhile this extra mile we have to go.
Well, yeah, in my case, for XR, as it was mentioned before, when it's a field that it's already well established, the right, you can identify the right players or the right actors and people that have worked already. For XR specifically, it's kind of recent, so one of the biggest challenges that we have is that the technologies that we are trying to deploy and improve are not at a maturity level that we would want to. Also, we are at F6S, we have several projects in the same sector, so we try to find these synergies in-house, basically. But taking the steps to also build an European XR ecosystem, it's kind of one of the other things that we are trying to reach. There are several organizations that are doing very interesting work. I think XR Finland, there's also in the Netherlands other organizations that are very working towards creating these ecosystems. Several events at European level. There's this parallel event to Slush, which some of you are familiar with. There is Immersive Tech Week. There are tracks in major European events that are trying to build this ecosystem, this European XR ecosystem. But for us, that's the main challenge, try to bring and identify the right actors and bring them together into a community.
When it comes for data, I would say that the biggest challenge is it's kind of it's in its DNA. It's the interest in data. There is a lot of political interest. There is a lot of economical interest. So there is a lot of people that are looking at what's going on in this field. So that creates a lot of people that wants to intervene, a lot of people that wants to bring their own ideas or their own initiatives, which make it a very big challenge for coordination and convergence. But if I have to kind of make it in a more normalized way, bringing the cooperation between Horizon Europe and Digital European Program, the challenge is because it's a multi-level and multi-layered approach. Multi-level, because indeed, as Jan said, we have European, national, regional, and even after you've got some extra layers in between each of them, which make it, you have to have everybody working on the same pace. And that sometimes is very challenging, not to mention the legal and financial rules, but just the political wheels and these kind of things. That's already a big challenge. And I agree, Jan, it's going better. It's going better. It was really difficult a few years ago, but now it's going better. Still a lot of work to do. Multi-layered is because when you touch to digital, you touch to an horizontal field that will therefore touch different legislations or different rules, which will be at different geographical jurisdictions. So suddenly you will talk about something that, the mobility law that is applying, and this is European, or no, we're going to touch about the skills and the social rules, so that's at national, so you have a jurisdiction which is different after. So you have a level of complexity which is diverging according where you are. So my best advice would be to always keep in mind when you are participating to one of those calls is, one, no topic is an island. You don't have one topic which is, or it's very rare now, a topic which is out of the blue and doesn't link to somebody else. And the second one is, you're not going to like it, it depends. I don't have a one rule fits for all. It will always depend about where you are, about which industry you are, and which maturity you are.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned there's a lot of political will, but For the will to materialize, some action is needed. For example, for data, I guess there's a need to adopt and use your open architectures. Do you see progress on that at the national level?
Well, since it's ongoing, it's difficult. So, I'm on record, so I not want to say too much. But it's improving, at least from what I can say that there were a political will inside the commissions to have a common data space support centers, which were supposed to develop this common architecture. So that's political wills then get transferred after to the community, so the community receives the message. And if at the beginning of the SCC, I said quite frankly, it was really a diverging initiatives with everybody wanted to go in their own directions, with the fight of working together inside the project and trying to bring the community with open mechanisms and co-design, it brings more and more people. It's a long and difficult and requiring a lot of efforts process, but there is always goodwill, most of the time, and we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. If we want the data strategy, the European data strategy to be successful, and I think you can translate that to any kind of policy for Europe, we had to work together. And the SCC is a living embodiment of the sentence, alone I go faster, together we go further. And I think this can be used for TEF, for XR, for anything.
Okay, thank you. So we'll switch a bit and start thinking from the perspective of the various participants of these programs. So when they open a funding and tenders portal, or they open the work program or whatever, they read the call, they see they're supposed to develop synergies with ongoing projects in DEP or ongoing results of Horizon Europe. What is your advice in practice? Where do they start? How do they find these answers to get successful proposals? I'll start with you, Jan.
Well, so of course we offer info days. So this would be my first, I hope not too secret recommendation to everyone in the room. Yeah, because I think we do try a lot to bring people together, and I think that of course it depends also on the call and the area. But again, speaking about my experience in our unit, for the TEFs, basically we had a 2-year, maybe even longer, consultation period, co-creation period, where we brought together the member states and the stakeholders in different workshops. We also did some survey and also had then 2 info days actually just before the call, so to actually make sure that everyone, all relevant stakeholders are aware of each other and they can sort of create good proposals. And so I think that's something that that we try to do, because we believed, obviously the TEFs, because they were so large, it's a 220 million budget altogether if we count them. The 4 TEFs together, so we wanted to make sure that sort of the community is ready to make good proposals, and I think that's also something that other units are doing, and I think that's sort of to be aware of these different co-creation exercises that we're doing.
Okay, Natalia, I believe in many of these open call projects you also offer advice on further funding, and I assume that also means further funding in European programs. Do you have some specific advice for applicants who are looking to build these synergies?
Well, if you have received funding already and it's ongoing, do not apply to others, but no. Basically, for us, it's just stay connected with the actors in the field that are taking these tasks, that are doing these tasks. So if you have already been part of a program, keep in touch with the partners, keep in touch with the people of the program, follow like the institutions that are like at a national point or at a European level, the companies or the institutions that are like communicating constantly about it. And this is basically, just don't, like you said, don't become an island in the ecosystem, because it will be harder for you to access or to be aware of the opportunities if you're not well connected to to other people that have similar interests as you.
Okay. And what would you recommend for
Well,
those?
3 letters, NCP. Yeah, national contact points. Horizon Europe and Digital Europe are wild beasts. They are complex, they are diverse, and I don't think there is one person on the world that actually understands it completely. So you need the help of different people working together who can maybe understand a part of it, and bringing together, they have a common or a shared understanding. So the national contact point is one of those person, and I can only preaching from my old choir, of course, but I can only recommend that. Another place, if you are more sectorial approach, data, TEF, XR, is of course the European associations. For data, it's BDVA. For TEF, it's ADRA. For XR, I forgot the name of the association. Sorry, it's EXA. No, you have a project. Well, whatever.
X4R or something.
Yeah, X4R. Yeah, thank you. And those will be the place where you will find the people that normally have knowledge for the sector, or at least for the technology you work on. So yeah, NCP and second associations.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so as next steps, we're getting ready for the second half of Horizon Europe, a long consultation period on what calls come next in Horizon Europe. What do we take with us from the experience with synergies so far? What can be done, improved in the future? So let's go the other way back.
Well, I would like to invite the commissions, when there is this synergy, to frankly just write it down on the call text. It's already done from quite a large number of topics, but let's generalize this. Let's generalize, have a section in the call text that says this topic is built in synergy with, and being the Digital European programs or being the topic. And to not hesitate to be specific, because sometimes you have this sentence, this has to be built in synergies with Digital European programs. Okay, which one? Which part? Which sections? So you need to dig a little bit more. So that would be something that could help to lower the barriers and for understanding. And after, well, there is what there is at the moment of the proposal, and there is what there is at the moment of the project. And to my knowledge, there is no legal obligations set in the grant agreement or in the consortium agreements for enforcing those synergies. So after, when the project runs, it's left to the goodwill of the people. Sometimes this goodwill joins the interest. It's in the interest of the sector to work together, so let's do it. But sometimes it doesn't. So I would maybe look for a way to have a legal obligations. Also, as part of the committee, I will really not like that, but I think that's going to be something that can help.
And do you have some advice coming?
I agree with you. It should be highly encouraged. I don't know if legal obligation, but yes. Well, in my case, like not asking the commission to do something, but what we do on the field, like day to day. To me, it would be relying on the initiatives like CSAs in associations. But I think that for topics that are new, they could really, really benefit from having these contact points on the sector that they can go to and help increase awareness on the technologies. Also, XR, like the projects in XR, highly overlap with projects in AI. Most of them are working with artificial intelligence models or other types of initiatives. So data also, like several overlappings in these 3 fields. So it would be a good thing. We start from the bottom up. We reach out as F6S, given like that we are very interested in providing our startups and SMEs that are involved with us with good support. But it could also be good that if we have identified now that these fields are kind of overlapping, to have maybe some more initiatives that could help us bring us all together.
Okay, so instead of generic footnotes in the work programs, we would like, sort of the community would like more information, more specific. How do you balance that with the need for openness of the calls and
Yeah, I mean, it's always a question that we always have to, or we have to make a decision on how specific do we make it, or how much freedom do we give the applicants to decide where the synergies make the most sense. And I mean, some of it is, of course, there's a political desire to create synergies, and I think then, of course, we'll be very specific. But I think there's also a value to be had of giving some freedom also to the applicants, to the people working on the ground, because as a project manager, what I always find very encouraging is actually to see when people come, when coordinator or the consultant comes to me and says, well, why don't we work with them? So if there's this will to create synergies that maybe have, I think that's where the biggest value is actually created. If there's a if people are willing and desire these synergies to make, and I think that's something that you do by bringing people together and making people aware of possible synergies, and that obviously is a job that the Commission is doing. But I think also if there are suggestions that you have for a project manager, I think don't be shy and make them and sort of insist on that. I think it's always interesting to hear. So it's a two-way conversation. I think that's also something that, speaking as a project manager, I think that's something interesting that, like you as a coordinator or beneficiary, I think you should be also making use of.
Okay, so I guess more conversation probably means more events like this where program participants themselves, not just, well, if you think of all the participants in Horizon Europe and all the participants in Digital Europe, it's quite a big community. So I suppose a good way to go is to create more opportunities for talking together. Okay, I would like to give the audience a chance to get involved. So if you have any questions about how the synergies work in practice, feel free to ask. Yes?
Thank you. Jan van der Biesen. I'm still very puzzled about this whole mechanism of synergies. And I hear it will be even more important maybe in the next framework program. And that worries me even more. Because the ultimate synergy is, let's look at the title of this session, Horizon Europe and Digital Europe. So suppose you have a certain challenge you want to address, and you put half of it, the research part, in Horizon Europe, and the uptake part in Digital Europe, but it has to be one activity in synergies, so you have a hit rate of 1 out of 6, say in Horizon Europe, and I don't know what it is for Digital Europe, also 1 out of 6. So the total hit rate will be very low. You have to hope that calls will be synchronized. And then you had several categories of synergies, and you called this example number 3 tricky, but I rather think it's number 4 stupid. Because what do you do if you are left with one half and not the other half? You cannot start with the approved half, so you have nothing.
Okay, I'm going to give an example of the stupid one. Thank you for the question. And then I'm going to reply to your question. So the example of stupid one is one that I left when I was, that I lived actually when I joined TNO, is that DG Move launched a call for tender for data governance for mobility data spaces. They launched these tenders, and one of my colleagues answered this tender and actually win it. In parallel, I've got an entire teams that worked on the data space support centers, whose part of the job is just to develop the data model governance for any kind of data spaces. So during a team meetings, we have this colleague who suddenly present his work on the data space governance for mobility, while the other team was like, but this is what we're doing on our side. So that's a kind of an example that happened. And that happens not because there was bad intention, but because DG Move launched something they were not aware that DG Connect was already funding. That will always happen. Not that bad intentions, but we have a very complex commissions, we have a very complex member state structure, we have very complex administrations, and also in our simple communities, it's already very complex. That will always happen. Now, that was the example. What we should really keep in mind is that synergies, it's kind of the buzzword of this event today, but it's brand new, it's really new. So we are learning, and the Commission is learning, and the member states are learning, and the community are learning what does it mean exactly. And unfortunately, the paths are very, very different In some sectors, it's become now obvious how it should do. If you want to build an HPC infrastructure, don't restart from scratch. You must be doing it with your HPC. For some others, like in XR, while you don't maybe not have a common infrastructure, I speak under your control. Huh? Correct me if I'm saying something stupid, but we don't sure what does it means. It's going to be like that at least until the end of FP, well, Horizon Europe and Digital Europe, and we don't know what it will look like in FP10 because we don't know the scope of FP10. We don't know if there are going to be a Digital European programs in after that one. And we will always have to be like this. My advice, it's always trickle down to the human. You have somebody who is an expert in the field. He will be informed, aware on another, if he's an open-minded people, of course, not if it's a very high ego person. He will get informed sooner or later by the community or by how it's get involved about the different initiatives. So the human will be the way the synergy will work concretely. And that's going to be the case for a lot of time again.
Okay, do you want to comment also?
Yeah, maybe. So I can only comment within sort of the expertise of my unit, but I think what we're doing quite well is, for example, this AI on demand platform, where it's basically a marketplace for assets. For first, it was researchers on Horizon 2020 to make available tools and data sets for research purposes, and that's been now going on. I'm not following too close, but I think 45 years, if I remember correctly. And now this year, the DEP side of this AI on demand platform has started, where basically they can already build on the assets that were available for researchers. But also now they're going to build up an offering specific for innovators. But of course, you know, data sets are data sets, and you can also, as a company, use them. So I think this is an example of synergies well made. And of course, my position is that we in our unit make it really well, and I think this is a good example of it. But I mean, synergies. I mean, last year there was a synergies communication that came out. So it's early days. I agree, it's early days. But like this is work in practice, and of course every unit and the Commission is working on making it well thought throughout. But I think yeah, it's something that we have to do. But it's because I mean, just speaking again about the topic of AI. I mean, we're very good in AI research as Europe. But if we look at the innovators, I mean, we have some, but I mean, usually they don't get mentions by the FT or CNN or whatever. They talk about other companies. And so that's why we need DEP to also support innovators. And this will be sort of a long road, but and Horizon Europe and DEP have to work together. And that's a political desire, at least in AI, it makes sense. And so we're doing our part to make this in a coherent and well thought out manner.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any further questions to our speakers?
Hello, Jos Geurts from INRIA. So when we're considering digital, I mean Horizon and Europe and the Digital Europe program, and there are clear links between them, and synergies are very good. However, I mean there are different programs as well. I mean you talked about DEP. I mean there a lot of energy goes in creating community, getting the noses in the same direction to build something that withstands, to construct something. Arguably, this is something that requires some continuity, and also see this in depth where you have several calls that follow up on each other. However, in Horizon Europe, it's a research program, so you can argue, okay, you want to have some diversity in there, seeing new people, new ideas. So what I'm wondering is there a tension between the two? Is there a danger that we should take into account?
Okay. Excellent point, Joost. Excellent. Because yes, there is a danger. There is a danger of having close community. You're right to say that Horizon Europe is, by definitions, normally a research and innovation programs. Normally, we should be able to explore different trends and explore different in different solutions before being the one that should be used economically. What is your question is actually calling more about what should be the DNA of each of those programs and how they should be structured. And I would argue that today each of the DNA of the two programs are not made for efficient synergies. It's something that was added on the top in the discussion later to say it would be great if we build on it. It works for some fields. For data space, it kind of work. It didn't work or it works more with more difficulties in some others. So I would say that should be part of the thinking and the design of the programs to justly think about those synergies if there will be different programs. Actually, there is also, we can argue there will be also the national programs and the regional programs, so they will need a bit to have a synergy there. But the danger is that do we want research programs which can create a close community? Or do we want, on the contrary, to explore different trends and making sure that we are there? This is a tricky question. I don't have a reply for that, but I can only see this should be part of the discussions for shaping FP10 and maybe what would be the successors of Digital European Program.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think as Joe said, it's a point well made. I think research, benefits from new ideas, and we're also, I mean, what we do in our unit is also, of course, there are, again, AI. There are different communities that are working on it, and so we're really trying to bring them together, but also reach out to other communities that are relevant. I didn't mention yet, but like 2 weeks ago we published this communication, the AI startups and innovation package, where basically we said, in 14 different ecosystems, we want to support AI, and this by definition already brings new people together. I mean, communities together and creates new sort of collaborations, and I think this is how we're also trying to use a new technology to create new ideas and to work on this challenge of making sure that we remain competitive. It's a good point, and I think we're making it and trying to apply it. But I mean, feedback is always welcome, I guess. And I guess this is also part of the feedback batch. And that was the question. Okay. Yeah.
No? Okay. Any further questions? Yes?
Hi, Stefan van Balen from IMEC. Since Horizon Europe and Digital Europe program are different programs with different rules and regulations, on the one hand the TOL level differs, but also on the other hand the funding rate differs. Most research partners get 100% in Horizon Europe, while in Digital Europe program it's often only 50%. How do you deal in practice with this funding gap that exists in Digital Europe program? Can you give some examples? Or?
I guess the question is for me. I can give you my example, TNO. I really do not want to enter any discussion about how the finance work inside TNO, because I'm going to bore everybody to death. But basically, it has been a strategic discussions. When Digital Europe came and we saw that what was found was actually part of our strategy, we just, TNO was like, okay, let's go for it. And we participate, for example, to the data space for manufacturing. We participate to the TEF for manufacturing also. And then after, once we have set up the cooperation with the consortium and the proposal was submitted, suddenly we had a discussion about, how do we fund it? Because indeed it's 50%. With only 7% overrate, actually looking at our actual real cost, that would make EU funding something around 30% of our actual cost. So basically the funding rate is killing us. So when we came to realize that, what has happened at that moment was like, whoops, stop, TNO, strategic decision coming from corporate level. We do not participate anymore to Digital European programs. That was a decision taken from a finance point of view. Then, after we had passing this moment of panic, we kind of reopened the discussions and then, look, there is some strategic aspect of those programs and we need to be there. Are we ready to make an investment about it? And this after leads to discussions with the ministries and the different funding in Netherlands, and we discuss about national co-funding. So this is what the testimony I can give you. No, thanks to this discussion, the participation to Digital European Program is possible for TNO. We do not exclude it, but however we are less like a charging knight toward the Digital European Program. We are far much more careful, and we have always a discussion at TNO wide level. Is this our priorities, or which one should be our priorities between those three? Because at the end you have some units, different units will have different interests. So we have mechanisms in place. Well, financially, we try to follow up also, but we know that this gives us limited opportunities. That's the testimony I can give you.
Maybe just to add, actually, I also, as a project officer, I encounter these difficulties. But some of the feedback I received is actually that, and it relates to what I think one of the opening speakers said, that it sort of it separates those that are in it for the grant agreement, the grant money, and those who really want to work on the subject. And so this is one of the topics that I was told by some of them in my consortium. I mean, for us, it's great to have committed consortia who want to solve the problem that we want to that we need addressing. So it's obviously, as I said, it's difficult, but it's worthwhile, and we're getting very committed consortia. So it's a bit of a rallying call to the 50%.
Natalia, does your organization consider these lower funding rates programs?
I kind of disagree a little bit with if we only have 50%, like if we only receive 50% of the funding, it's not that we don't want to work on it, that it's a bit risky for us as a company to make that investment. Maybe if we see that the field it's more stable, even like for example in the field of manufacturing, that you might do like more secure investments that work in other fields like XR. Then I think that's mainly a difference, at least for F6S. Also our goal, it's, well, specifically in the department that works with Horizon projects, it's to increase the impact at research level and not so much to focus on the uptake of the technologies at that point. We have other departments in the company that are working towards other goals, but for us, our objective right now it's support, bring research into a stage that at least can start to get into market.
If I can complement my question, just say on that reflection is that inside TNO that trigger discussions just say about the use of our technology transfer office. So suddenly we had researchers that were more interesting also in spin-off and creating startups based on the results coming from those projects. So that's a change in mindset which is ongoing right now, but we already have one example of a startup of a spin-off that's going to come based on this. So the researchers are looking at, we only have 50%, and by law we are not allowed to make loss and we are not allowed to make profit. Then we need to look at how to valorize it in a different way. So there have been some researchers that were really always the time on the research, or at least on very comfortable inside TNO. So then he started, we should maybe make a company out of it. So that triggered a kind of change in the mindset, which I think is what the Commission wanted somewhere deep down in the thinking. So that's, I don't know if it's positive or negative yet, but the future will tell, but at least it is something ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions that the audience would like to ask? Okay, no, in that case, I would like to ask each of you to make a final comment on what's your biggest wish or recommendation for improving synergies already in the next work program and beyond the current financing period.
I'm going to take the easy one, and I think to continue this discussion, because I think, it's always good to get frank feedback from the community on what works, what doesn't work, and what's needed, and we can take that into account to improve our calls work programs for the future. So I think it's really a call to tell us what works, what doesn't work, and I'm always very curious to hear what works, and sometimes, we also have to look at what doesn't work so well. So yeah.
To me, it would be fundamental to strengthen the connections between the communities, especially those that are very new. For that purpose, it would be key that we have a strong strategy when communicating the outcomes of research. So it would be easier for, all of the actors on the ecosystem to identify these potential synergies. So in our case, as F6S, our goal would be the projects that we're involved in to create these synergy spaces.
Well, I give 4 examples of type of synergies, and I think there is a recommendation that can be made for each of them. But what are maybe, if I look at the long terms of those synergies, I would say let's not be afraid to maybe think out of the box. Do we have the right instruments to have these synergies? Shouldn't we think about something new or something different? It's a can of worms, yes, because as soon as you open this, you open a lot of other side discussion. But maybe we should do that for what's come after FP10, for having a very strong synergies, both between European programs, but also with programs at national levels. It's going to be a huge can of worms. So let's not be afraid about it.
We will continue this discussion for sure.
Okay, so I would like to thank all of you speakers and the audiences for being active and asking questions, and feel free to network and talk a bit more about the details. Thank you.